Hello students, welcome to ePathshala. My name is Ashima Gupta and I am an assistant professor in postgraduate Government College for Girls. This paper is going to study deeply the concept of justice and how it has emerged with time. Different scholars have actually interpreted this term in a particular way, and this means this term actually has a very different meaning in the West and the East. Questions like who has the ultimate authority to interpret this term and actually implement it in the correct way are some things which will be answered in this paper. Justice initially was studied as a domestic concept, but nowadays it is studied in an international context, since the decision of one nation also impacts the decision of other nations and their people in this present globalized era. This paper will further discuss the differentiation between procedural and substantive justice. Objectives: to describe the concept of global justice in international politics and is aimed at providing an overview of the philosophical debates and some of the most important themes under it. What is justice? According to Andrew Heywood, it is an archetypical example of an essentially contested concept. Very broadly, it means to give individuals their due and can be understood as a distributive concept. However, it is important to note here that most classical liberal theories work with the idea of inherent equality or moral worth of all human beings being equal. It has at its very basis the individual and impartial nature of morality. This is compatible with people being unequal in external attributes like abilities, social circumstances, talents, temperament, and attributes that individuals do not have complete control over and thus are arbitrary. David Miller, in his 1976 book Social Justice, lists three contrasting principles of social justice. The principles being to each according to his needs, to each according to his rights, and to each according to his deserts. The two criteria of need and desert are prioritized by different schools of thought to articulate different conceptions of justice. The need-based arguments are used from socialists to egalitarians with different philosophical implications and questions relating to distribution of social goods and responsibilities of members of a society towards less advantaged. Justice in common parlance is understood as connected with law. It can thus be broadly characterized as procedural and substantive. Procedural justice implies that legal processes and procedures are guided by clear and specified rules to arrive at decisions for penalties, punishment, and compensations. Substantive justice refers to the substance or content of these laws. It is also linked to the critical question of legitimacy. A law seen as unjust will not enjoy the legitimacy and over time will be challenged and in some cases revised or repealed. However, another important strand in debate on the question of justice in political philosophy concerns itself with social justice and deals with distribution of benefits and rewards in a society. An important distinction between aspects of procedural and social justice is evident in the debate between egalitarians and libertarians. Fundamental difference arises on the question of economic equality with regards to distribution of economic goods, wealth, income, and money. For egalitarians, the demand for economic equality is not absolute, but the inequality should be severely limited. Libertarians want the state to be a guarantor of moral equality and procedural justice. Robert Nozick, in Anarchy, State and Utopia, explains his theory of justice. He argues that the entitlements of an individual should be determined by the past actions in turn would determine the deserts. Nozick allows for rectification only when unfair practice has been employed. he also makes another distinction and says that an exchange and acquisition must not worsen the conditions of others, especially in the cases of goods that are essential to life. State's minimal role in the economy guarantees for him the individual liberties. Redistribution of resources by the state is what leads to inequalities in the society as such because it is an attack on individual liberty. Egalitarians insist that this view of Nozick is severely limited in its understanding of economic goods and which ones are essential for life. Egalitarians, the very basis for inequality and thereby injustice in society, begins by an arbitrary fact of birth in particular family, class, community, gender, religion, etc. Egalitarians' thrust is on distributive aspect of justice as they argue that state has a responsibility to uphold the principles of justice. The egalitarian view is largely shaped by John Rawls' 1971 A Theory of Justice. It is one of the most influential works of 20th century to shape the discourses and understanding of justice in which Rawls reconciles liberty and equality in a justice framework. Rawls himself rejected the label of egalitarianism as he bases his theory on basic tenets of procedural theory, that is, the process of law should be followed meticulously. The central idea on which his general conception of justice is based states that all social primary goods, liberty and opportunity, income and wealth, and the basis of self-respect are to be distributed equally unless an unequal distribution or any or all of these good is to the advantage of the least favored. Kymlicka outlines that in this general conception, simple idea at the heart of Rawls' conception is that inequalities are only allowed if they improve the initial equal share of individuals, but not allowed if they invade into it. To address the problem of conflicting distribution of different primary goods, Rawls uses the principle of lexical priority as a solution. Thus, in his framework, Rawls clearly establishes that some social goods are more important than other social goods and principles of justice that he arrives at reflect this. As Kymlicka points that Rawls' definition of liberty is also very specific to its meaning, the standard civil and political rights like right to vote, freedom of speech and expression, freedom of mobility, due process of law, to run for political office. Rawls' direct concern is with the prevailing question of equality of opportunity for economic distribution of goods. While Rawls also requires equality of opportunity in allotting positions, he denies that the people who fill the position are thereby entitled to a greater share of resources. A Rawlsian society may pay such people more than average, but only if it benefits all members of the society to do so. Social contract as an expository device to lease out the principle of justice that people will decide from an original position. It is not an anthropological claim but a moral claim about the absence of natural subordination among human beings. Charles Brights highlights that for Rawls, justice is the first virtue of social institution. The primary subject of justice then is the basic feature of society, or more exactly, the way in which the major social institutions distribute fundamental rights and duties and determine the division of advantages from social cooperation. Rawls proposes justice as fairness based on two principles, according to which the basic structure of society can be appraised. Each person is to have an equal right to the most extensive basic liberty compatible with a similar liberty for others. social and economic inequalities are to be so arranged that they are to be of the greatest benefit to the least advantaged members of a society consistent with the just savings principle. B. Offices and positions must be open to everyone under conditions of fair equality of opportunity. Rawls' work has been center of debate in political philosophy ever since it was published in 1971 with scores of critique and extension of the idea. However, for our discussion, the points discussed above are the most relevant. Justice on global level. The debate on the question of global justice thus is mostly among the philosophers and scholars for distributive justice in the domestic domain. However, there are some ways in which procedural accounts of justice do appear in international politics. Theories of international relations like realism and neo-realism use the Hobbesian conception of state of nature as one of their most fundamental assumptions. Thus, it is characterized by a system of states without a legitimate centralized authority. Apart from this major difference, international law post-Second World War embodies some of the moral standards, rules and regulations, rights and duties of states for international justice. However, demand for distributive justice for redistribution of world's resources have not become embedded in international law. Given the dissatisfaction with traditional international relations theory in providing with the moral framework and realities of an interconnected world with technological advancement render the idea of justice contained within the boundaries of nation state limited in its scope and in denial of reality of a globalized world. In normative theory, theorists and philosophers strongly supporting strongly egalitarian principles in a society or the domestic domain are the ones who discuss the distributive and procedural aspects of global justice. For libertarians or the theorists who feel distribution in society should be based purely on desert and should be procedurally driven, do not support redistributive measures undertaken by the state. Another strand of procedural account is found in the democratic theories in the arena of international politics. Like the procedural theories in domestic sphere, it is argued that international law and policies are justifiable through an accepted legal process based on the consent of the states. States that violate their domestic principles of justice or human rights can still claim legitimacy in the international sphere. Concerns of substantive justice hold equal relevance internationally too. This division between global versus domestic becomes the first contention in the debate on whether and how the principles of justice in domestic sphere can be applied to the global. These views are broadly interpreted as statist and contain within them several strands ranging from social egalitarianism, liberal nationalists to communitarianism. However, for many, this statist understanding of justice is limiting for human being as birth of an individual in a nation is a morally arbitrary fact. The interconnectedness of states and countries gives rise to a strong thrust towards broadening the definition of justice and what it entails for individuals. This school of understanding is known as cosmopolitanism. Charles Bates, in his book 1979, Political Theory and International Relation, argues that Rawls' assumption of national societies as self-contained is not valid given the interdependence of nations at global level. Bates' political theory and international relations demonstrated the importance of ethics and political theory in international relations. He offered what is believed to be the first most persuasive argument for global principles of justice at the time. Bates repudiates the Hobbesian state of nature, claims of realist and non-realist theories of international relations that makes moral judgments inapplicable in such a setting. Theorists such as Michael Wurtzel strongly argue that international level states have rights to autonomy that insulate them from external moral assessment and political interference from other states. He further argues that general duty towards other human beings will be overridden by the special obligation individuals have towards their family, community, and nations. International original position is reframed as the second original position, and what are selected are more the principles that detail the fundamental rights and duties of society of well-ordered people and as guiding foreign policy than are an argued case for distributive justice. Bytes' position also evolves from his original argument of extending the principles of distributive justice to global sphere. He bases his argument on the Kantian moral equality of people and not so much on the contractarian framework as an expository tool, although degree of interdependence between societies and nations has only increased since the publication of his book in 1979. Global Distributive Justice. Thomas Pogge has expounded one of the strongest and most extensive arguments for global justice using principles of distributive justice. Firstly, theoretically, to make the argument that the principles of distributive justice that are derived in the domestic setting of nation-state, it is imperative for the theorist to show that something akin to a basic structure exists globally. This view, contended by Brian Berry, as he argues that act of trading goods and services in itself cannot be said to represent a cooperative venture. For example, the spice trade between East and the West was not a cooperative enterprise. He states nationality is just one further deep contingency like genetic endowment, race, gender, and social class. One more potential basis of institutional inequalities that are inescapable and present from birth. Within Rawls' conception, there is no reason to treat this case differently from others. Pogge argued that the global institutions that exist are directly violating the rights of poor people, while others cite the role of institutions in systematic poverty and discrimination with a view to exchange the role of rich individual. Pogge cites them to lay the blame squarely on the rich as the institutions that they control and set the agenda of. Thus, poverty on a global scale is not simply a problem that can be eradicated by humanitarian aid and assistance from rich to the poor. He also points to the international resources and borrowing privilege that the head of states have to sell the resources of their countries and borrow loans in the name of their country and people. As long as the representative is able to effectively control and oppress the people of a country, it has the ability to speak on their behalf at international treaty making. Paton argues Pogge arrives at a maximalist conclusion with regards to the duty that rich have towards poor from the minimalist normative premise of negative duty. To conclude, in this paper, we have seen the range of scholarship that exists for the concept of justice and how it has been used in different manner and in different ways. Procedural justice actually deals with the legal processes which lead to attaining justice, and substantive justice is actually dealing with the concept or the content of the law which actually aims at achieving justice. Liberals view that justice has morality ingrained in it, whereas socialists and egalitarian use the need-based approach. However, Rawls and Nozick are the principal thinkers who have succeeded in maintaining their dominant position in the discourses about justice, and no study of justice would be complete without understanding them. Thank you.